Next, we have South Sudan. And South Sudan, I don't know what has been more surprising, that crazy opening ceremony with that blue man, or South Sudan and their basketball play. We saw in that warm-up game against USA, they weren't afraid of the moment at all. And I really feel like in that warm-up game, that's probably their ceiling of how good they can play. With South Sudan, even though they have shown a great style of basketball and they can compete with those S-tier teams, I just don't think they're able to do that on a consistent basis. And because of that, I'm going to give them the ranking of. So in this summer filled with so many different sports, we are finally at the stage in the summer that I've been waiting for 4 long years. The Paris Olympics have begun and there are so many different competitions, so many different teams and athletes that I'm so looking forward to watching as all these different countries compete for those gold, silver and bronze medals. I'm going to be doing a series on this channel of Team Huddle, exploring the tactical, technical and the mental side of lots of different sports. We're going to be exploring a host of different athletes and their profiles. We're going to be ranking different teams and sports, and we're going to look at some predictions as to why some players and some teams have done great and what is to be expected of them as we progress through the Olympics. So in this video, we are going to start off with the men's basketball competition. We're going to explore all the different teams. So far, they've all competed in one match. We're going to break down what are some things that we can look forward to as this tournament progresses, and we're going to rank each team in this men's Olympic basketball competition. So we're going to explore all the different teams in this Olympics 2024. We're going to look at all the different countries, and all of them are going to get a rank, S being the highest and then C being the lowest. I didn't want to go below C because all of these countries have qualified for the Olympics, so they have some respect I should give them. But there is definitely a ranking order that we've seen so far, only one game into it. So let's start off with the big elephant in the room, the United States of America. They are coming into this Olympics having won gold 4 different times consecutively. So they're looking for their 5th in a row, and they've put together a team that, in all honesty, it's highly likely they are going to do it. Of course, leading the way, we got LeBron. We got so many different stars. We got so many different Hall of Famers in this team playing at a high level. And of course, they are expected to win it all. We can see in those warm-up games, a couple players weren't doing so great in Joel Embiid. We can see that in a team full of so many different star players, and when they're playing in the NBA, they're the number one option. In that whole setup, we can see LeBron is the number one of the number one options. He's leading the team great, not just with his words and his wisdom, but through his actions. Everyone's following suit. Yes, they've had their ups and downs in their warm-up matches, but when they got to that first game against Serbia, you can tell they were ready to go. LeBron led them. Everyone followed suit, and we saw a surprise sighting of Kevin Durant, and he reminded us that when he puts on this Olympic jersey, he is unstoppable. Only missing one shot, shooting effortlessly, all within the offense, and they did great to secure that win in dominant fashion. And because of how dominant they were in that match, as well as their history, the team players that they have, the setup that they have, of course, they are going to get the rank of S tier. They are great. They are favorites to win it. And I think a lot of talk has been given right now to Jason Tatum not having any minutes in that first match, which I don't, that's a bit of hype because he really will have a lot of time in other matches and situations to play. It was just in this first match with KD coming back, the team playing really well. I actually agree with the tactical decisions that Steve Kerr kind of put together. Next team we'll look at is Serbia. Serbia, of course, have arguably the best player in the world right now in Nikola Jokic, but it just feels like that's all they have. And in a team and in a way that Nikola plays, he needs a lot of playmakers and shooters around him to help generate that team offense that he likes to play and does well as the Serbia head coach that he wants to do. A more traditional coach, but it just feels like they don't have that great of a caliber of players around Nikola Jokic to kind of fully utilize him that he is used in the NBA. So because of that, I'm going to give them a ranking of A out of respect to the 3-time MVP. I think they can make a deep run within the Olympics, but it's going to be a big ask, especially with some of these other countries that we're going to get to in a sec. Next, we will go with Germany. Germany are looking good. From securing that World Championship gold medal, we can see that they've just maintained that momentum in their warm-up matches, and they've started off this Olympics really well. They're a great team that is really well balanced. They've got Dennis Schroeder, of course, leading the team, being a great playmaker. And we've got their shooters, they've got the Ragnar brothers, they've got a lot of depth in their team, and it just feels like everyone complements each other really, really well. And so because of that, they are going to get the ranking of A. They can definitely make a good run in the Olympics, potentially get to the final, but they have a lot of competition ahead of themselves to get there. I just feel like they don't have enough pieces to put them in that S category compared to the other countries that I have. They're definitely great. They definitely deserve some respect as world champions, but do they have enough to get to the quarterfinals, progress to the semis, and potentially get to the gold? That is a question mark that we'll wait to see. Next, we have the home team. We've got France. My goodness, France in this Olympics, they are ready to go. I think a lot of times when we think about the home team, and of course in the Olympics, a lot of the home teams get a buy-in. France did not need that in one bit. They have looked amazing for a good couple of years now, and now adding Wembanyama to that lineup, they are looking elite. That twin tower setup that they have works very, very well. We can see that there's times when Wemby and Gobert are running a pick and roll, and it on the one sense it looks kind of weird, but it works really well. Wembanyama, we can really see from his time ending at the San Antonio Spurs in that regular season to where he is now, he's definitely made a jump. You can see a bit more of his guard play and kind of shooting those threes and being a bit more of a playmaker. We can also see that France are seeing that growth, and they're really trying to make an emphasis of kind of giving him the ball and putting him in those decision-making situations. And so we can really see that from a mental standpoint, France's team confidence is really centered around the playmaking abilities of Wembanyama. If he's making those great decisions, if he's playing well, that helps the team also kind of fall into suit, making those wide open shots or making those easy plays to then get everybody going. And then being the home side, they're always going to have the fans, and they're going to have that kind of positive environment to kind of help them. And when we think about role players, when we think about shooting and those areas of basketball, when you have the home crowd, it really helps in those decision-making situations. And so France, because of all those factors, they are definitely getting the ranking of S. Out of all teams that could potentially upset USA, France are definitely up there. There's some big question marks between whether USA have the ability to kind of manage Wembanyama, his decision-making abilities, and the way that France play through him. But France do have some question marks in the sense that their bench players do also need to contribute. It can't just be a case of Wembanyama and those starting five doing well. Their bench players also need to play well, because we know USA are stacked from player 1 to player 10. Next, we have Greece, and Giannis making his Olympic debut. Really started off great against Canada in that match. Giannis, as well as Serbia, are kind of in that same boat. They've got one great player, but they just don't have the personnel around them to kind of fully utilize their abilities that we see in the NBA. So similar to Serbia, Greece are getting that rank of A. Great team, they have a good playmaker as their point guard, they have a great kind of set around Giannis, but they just don't have enough, in my opinion, to move up to that S rank when we're looking at France, the United States, and my other ranking of S, which I'll get to in a sec. Our next country we have is Australia. Australia are good. They've got some good talent. They've got some good players. In their opening match, they also were very competitive. They're a team that they have some good role players in the NBA, And in the Olympics, we've seen that even if you're a role player in the NBA, when you step onto that international court, they change. You can't assume just because they're a role player in the NBA that they're not going to be great internationally. We can see that in Germany, Dennis Schroeder. We can also see that in Australia with Paddy Mills and their big man as well. They're playing great. They can also potentially progress to the quarters or semi-finals. But again, they just don't have a lot of talent to kind of progress up those rankings and potentially get to the final. And because of that, I am going to give them the ranking of B. They've got some good players and they can definitely make any game competitive, but do they have enough to really progress and kind of challenge those A and S tier teams? I don't think so. Next, we have South Sudan. And South Sudan, I don't know what has been more surprising, that crazy opening ceremony with that blue man, or South Sudan and their basketball play. We saw in that warm-up game against USA, they weren't afraid of the moment at all. And I really feel like in that warm-up game, that's probably their ceiling of how good they can play. They've got some good shooters, they've got some good playmakers, they play well together, and they really kind of focus on a team-focused style of basketball, which really makes sense because I don't think they have individual talent to kind of take on any team. But once they're playing as a team, once they're moving the ball around, once they're using their athleticism, that's what helps them generate those easy baskets, keeps them in games and potentially upsetting a team or two. With South Sudan, even though they have shown a great style of basketball and they can compete with those S-tier teams, I just don't think they're able to do that on a consistent basis. And because of that, I'm going to give them the ranking of C. And when I think about all the countries that I've put and ranked as C, that is the key point with them. And so the teams that I've ranked C, in addition to South Sudan, have been Brazil, Puerto Rico, and Japan. Yes, they can play some good basketball and all of them have some NBA caliber players, but can they consistently put together a lot of quarters or some games to then help them to get high in their group stages and potentially get past those quarterfinals? I just don't think so, especially when we're thinking about this Olympic run where it's arguably the most competitive international tournament ever assembled. So now that we've got our C's out the way, we've got one other country which is a B and we've got another country which I've ranked an S. And judging by how they've played, you probably can guess. So we'll first start off with my B, and that is Spain. When we think about Spanish basketball, especially in the Olympics over the last couple of Olympics, we know that they have been great. They had the Gasol brothers, Ricky Rubio, Fernandez, Sergio Rodriguez. They had a lot of great caliber of players. And it just feels right now they're in that transition period. They've still got a couple of their old heads, but then they are transitioning between who is actually going to be the star player that's going to take over and really kind of put them in that dominant state that they were a couple Olympic runs before. Yes, they have Santi Aldama and he has been great for Spain, but again, I just feel like they need a bit more. The Hernandez brothers have been good. They've got their good role players. They've got maybe one star in this international circuit. But again, they just don't have enough to really be competitive against their S-tier teams. Could they be maybe a A-ranked team on any given day? Probably. But again, my ranking is based on consistency. In the field of basketball, especially in these knockout rounds, there's definitely going to be an upset. And we're going to do a video later on exploring some predictions. So yes, some of these teams can produce an upset, but when we're looking at ranking, I'm more focusing on, okay, can you consistently put together this type of play? And I just don't feel that Spain can do anything above a B. And last but certainly not least, the team that I have ranked S is Team Canada. Canada, they're here to make a statement. Looking at their first game against Greece, we could really see that their starting five have an S-tier caliber ability. They're able to kind of extend the lead against a Greece side that, in my opinion, are ranked A, so they're really good competition. But when Canada were clicking, Greece were no match for them. We can really see that their starting five are really balanced. You got your slasher and driver in RJ Barrett. You've got your star of stars in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You got your defensive stopper. You've got your big man. You've got your bench players. So you've got all the different components needed to do really well in this competition. And I just feel that Canada right now is their time to start this dominant run in this Olympics of really kind of competing for those medals for like the next 10 years. Canada is really interesting because they have an X factor in Jamal Murray. We know Jamal Murray's ability, having won a championship in 2023. We know that he is a great player, but right now he's coming off an injury. And how much is that going to impact Team Canada's ability to kind of play, not just in these group stages, but when you get to that higher competition in the quarters, semis, and potentially the final? How is that all going to play out? And so this Olympics is very, very competitive. We've got a lot of really good teams. We've got teams that can provide an upset. We've got some teams that, if they are clicking on all cylinders, it should be a great games. And so I'm really looking forward to the rest of these group stages. Then we progress to the quarters, semis, and then the final. I, of course, think that the United States are going to win, but this will not be an easy feat at all. In my opinion, America's biggest competition would be France. I just really believe that when you have that home court advantage, just mentally, that really helps you produce great basketball. And if they get that momentum, it's really going to be difficult for France to be stopped at any stage in this tournament. But let me know your thoughts. Who do you have winning? What are your thoughts about the group play that's been happening so far? I look forward to producing lots of different videos on this Olympics, so come join this video with me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.